Hi, you're watching Hindustan Times and I'm Aditi Prasad. The Congress panel constituted to resolve the infighting in Punjab Congress has submitted its report to the party high command. The main recommendations are that the Punjab Chief Minister, Captain Amarinder Singh, should helm the party in an election year. Secondly, his former cabinet colleague Navjot Singh Sidhu, who they were sort of not getting along, and there was public spat between them, which is why the committee was formed in the first place. That the captain should suitably accommodate, quote unquote, Amrinder Singh should suitably accommodate his cabinet colleague Navjot Singh Sidhu, and all sections of Punjab society must be justly represented in leadership and party positions. Those are the submissions of the Congress panel, which has been constituted on the Punjab infighting, and this comes a day after a prominent member of the Rahul Gandhi team, Jitin Prasada, had quit the Congress to join the Bharatiya Janata Party. Now, what we know so far, what we understand so far, with barely months to go for assembly elections, the question we are asking today is whether the Gandhis can resolve this tug of war in time, because this report is certainly not going to resolve it. This report by the three-member panel constituted by Sonia Gandhi, or will the Congress do we see that the Congress losing another state from its kitty? I'm joined today by Ramesh, Vinayak, our executive editor in Hindustan Times, based in Chandigarh, and we have with us Vinod Sharma, our senior political editor. And thank you, sirs, for joining us and just trying to make sense of what's really going on here. Your first response on this panel report, the Congress panel report on the infighting in Punjab Congress. Ramesh, would you like to take a go at it first?
Yes, thanks, Aditi. From the report that we have seen a while ago about panel's report to the High Command, it has suggested that Sidhu should be suitably accommodated, and also that there should be a course correction. But the report hasn't really kind of spelled out the nitty-gritty of this accommodation of how it has to be done, and also what kind of course correction the party expects Amarinder Singh to do. So as I could make out, it boils down to ambition and accommodation. So Joe Singh Sidhu, we all know, has an unbridled ambition. He is aiming to position himself, in the reckoning in the assembly elections, which are due early next year. Captain Amarinder Singh is on record having said that he cannot be made a state Congress president because there are many senior leaders who are there in the whole pattern. Similarly, another thing which we all know is that Sidhu's wish list to be elevated as deputy chief minister. Even that would be a tough call for Amarinder and the High Command to take, because the party will have to really balance, the caste equation which, operate in Punjab. There are different caste dynamics, in this state. There's a 43% Hindu population. We have 53% Sikh population. So, and then we have a very large Dalit population. The High Command cannot lose sight of political dynamics while it works out some kind of formula which would be acceptable to Captain Amarinder Singh, and also we kind of will mollify Navjot Singh Sidhu.
All right. So these are what the recommendations that I just said. This is what sources are telling us, that this has been submitted as recommendations to the Congress High Command. And I'd like to come to you, Vinod. This this infighting between the two has only intensified. And do you believe that these kind of recommendations, as we've been told, are in this report that has been submitted by this three-member panel, Do you think they're going to make any difference? Is the captain going to welcome back Navjot Singh Sidhu with open arms, who's been openly over the last 3 4 weeks calling him names publicly?
Well, first of all, I can't decipher what does it mean when they say, the committee, that Amarinder Singh will helm the Congress. Amarinder Singh currently is helming the government. Now do they also want him to helm the Congress party, which is the PCC? So would that CM would also be the PCC chief? Helming the Congress in the election time means the PCC chief. The question was that was to be answered was about the PCC chief, that who will be the PCC chief, because there was a move perhaps to replace Sunil Jhakar, and Navjot Sidhu wanted to be PCC chief, but he cannot be because the same report says that there should be an equitable distribution of positions and responsibilities in terms of a social balance. And Sidhu is a Jat Sikh like Amarinder Singh, so you can't have a chief minister and the PCC chief both Jat Sikhs. Now let's come then to the post of Deputy Chief Minister. Deputy Chief Minister is a doable thing if Amarinder Singh agrees, and Amarinder Singh, this is going to be really his swan song, because he had said last time that it was a swan song, but then in the middle of his tenure he said that he intends to contest again as for chief ministership and as chief minister. Now, Amarinder Singh is 80 now, 80 plus, and I don't think that it should take much on his part to be giving deputy chief ministership to Navjot Sidhu. If Navjot Sidhu, I think, reins in his temperament. You see, the biggest problem with Navjot, who is a popular leader, who's a good public orator, who can, move people at times at his oratorical best. But he has a temperament. It's a problem of temperament. In a party like the Congress, in any political party, you can't be an individualist in the sense that Navjot at times comes across as. His all other qualities notwithstanding. So I personally feel that Deputy Chief Ministership for Navjot could be doable, but mind you, if he wants the PWD portfolio, over which there was a tussle between him and Amarinder Singh, which saw his exit from the Council of Ministers, then he may not get that portfolio, PWD portfolio. That I think that could be a sticking point between him and Amarinder. But insofar as Deputy Chief Minister is concerned, it has no relevance in the Constitution. The Deputy Prime Minister has no relevance in the Constitution. Constitution recognizes only Chief Ministers and the Prime Minister, and you can have any designation, but the work that you will do will be that of a minister, and you would be reporting to and answerable to the Chief Minister at any point in time. So I think this report means nothing. It is just a, what should I say, hack job. What have they done? I mean, as if wasted so much of time, and they come up these recommendations. Unless, of course, what we have got is a redacted version of the report, and they have said more in what they have filed to the Congress president. But may I tell you one thing, that last time in the 2014 elections, when Amarinder Singh contested from Amritsar, it was on the personal request of Sonia Gandhi. And he told her that you are my leader. If you want me to do it, I will do it. And he went to Amritsar and contested against Arun Jaitley and defeated him. That's history. So if Sonia Gandhi picks up the phone and makes a request to him, I think Amarinder Singh is chivalrous enough and cognizant enough of his past relations with the Gandhi family, especially Rajiv Gandhi. And out of that, he may accept whatever Sonia Gandhi tells him. And I think that Sonia Gandhi too will have to be reasonable in making a request to Amarinder Singh so close to the elections, because if the Congress wins the election, it will be largely due to the persona of Amarinder Singh.
Yes,
And if
because
it,
he does remain the most popular leader for the Congress party in the state of Punjab. But, sir, you've talked about the past relations, and therefore, this is a question that I want to come to you with first, and then to Ramesh, and that is about Amarinder Singh was literally summoned to Delhi, last week. The panel to sort of meet with this panel, address the grievances against him. Uh, Given the fact that he's a long time loyalist, do you believe that? A lot of captain loyalists are calling it an insult and a humiliation for the man who won Punjab for the Congress. Do you
no, no,
agree with that?
I would not like to call him a loyalist. He perceives himself as a friend of the Gandhis, and he thinks, and what he expects from Rahul is that kind of deferential conduct, which a friend of his father should expect from the son. I wouldn't call him a loyalist. And also, please understand that Amarinder Singh was the person who resigned his seat, Operation Blue Star, and he returned his awards as well. I think his Padma Bhushan or Padma Shri or whatever he had. Uh, and certain issues is very strong. You see, the biggest plank which they had, which the so-called dissidents had against Amarinder Singh, was the lack of action on his part on the sacrilege incidents which had happened there and the police firing under the Badal administration. And the charge against him was that he's being soft on the Badals. There was also in between. There was also in between an interview, and where he said certain things, and he retracted from that later. Said that he didn't mean it that way, which again had caused problems for him. Now, in my personal view, if that incident, there is a new special task force investigating that case, and Ramesh would have greater details about it. But my short point on that issue is that if an action has to be initiated on the basis of those incidents and the police report that may come up by then it has to be closer to the elections to be of any use to the Congress party. I mean, if you start an investigation 2 years before and everything is wrapped up, it is not an election issue. So I do not know what ace he has got up his sleeves, but even there, the timing of a probe. You must learn from the election winning machine that we often talk about, which each time there is an election happening, and you have the investigating agencies visiting the rivals, and initiating cases and opening investigations. So I don't want that repeat in Punjab. It's my state. I love it immensely, and I think that you see, politically adversarial relationship is one thing, and inimical relationship is something which shouldn't be pursued. But if that is an issue, then that investigation will come to a fruition closer to elections, and action based on that will also come closer to elections.
You are talking.
On rest about that, you can ask Ramesh Vinayak, because he's on the spot and he'd know it better.
Ramesh, you want to talk about that investigation, and then I want to go to Navjot Singh Sidhu versus Amarinder Singh, because that battle is not over, and really this report certainly solves nothing.
Yes, that's right, Aditi. As Vinod sir has very rightly said, the sticking point is this action against people responsible for sacrilege and police firing cases, which happened in 2015 when Shromani Akali Dal BJP government was in power. Now, the Congress, during its campaign for 2017 election, had explicitly said that we will bring the guilty to book, and Amrinder is on record, so is the Congress, having said that, we will take actions against the Badals, who were the head ham of Punjab at that point of time. Now, we have seen, a couple of investigations into the incidents of sacrilege and into the firing cases. Report was submitted to the High Court, which quashed the whole investigation. So we are back to square one. Now Amarinder government has set up another SIT to investigate these two politically sensitive cases. So Navjot
That's
Sidhu has
interesting.
been
Yeah, yeah.
Navjot Sidhu,
Let's just yeah. Are you able to hear me, sir?
yes.
Okay, so I'm saying let's just get back to this current situation and say that okay, I'll repeat the question I asked Vinod. The panel had met Amarinder Singh separately, summoned him to Delhi, met Sidhu separately. Do you believe that the Congress is playing its cards correct in Punjab? There is a Gandhi family friend as Amarinder Singh, who is a very popular Congress leader, one of the most popular leaders for the Congress in an election year specifically, and they are sort of alienating him, putting him in the dock to placate Sidhu, who joined the party only in 2017.
No, I think that's an overinterpretation. To alienate Amrinder Singh in his own state. You see, 5 of the 8 MPs have met him yesterday, and other 3 are also with him. All 8 members of parliament from that state are firmly with him. There may be 1 or 2 in the Rajya Sabha who are not with him, but the Lok Sabha members are with him. Uh, uh, Please, where there is, I see a bit of legitimate grievance on the part of the dissenting group, is Amarinder's over-reliance on the bureaucrats, a set of civil servants whose advice he lends an attentive ear more to them than to his party leaders. And if course correction is a cliche that is usable and of some utility, then I think that in the election year, that course correction should be that he should listen more to his ministers and to his MLAs than to the bureaucrats he has been relying on thus far. But when I say that, I also take note of the fact that Punjab this year has overtaken some of the star states which were very good in education in terms of school education. It is number 1 in school education today. Punjab is number 1 in school education. And on this too, Ramesh will tell you more, that it has overtaken Kerala, it has overtaken Delhi, it has overtaken Tamil Nadu. It is number 1 state in school education in the middle of the pandemic in terms of imparting virtual learning, in terms of training teachers
Fair enough.
in the in this new regimen, make them adapt to this new regimen. So I think that, and also they must realize, if there, it is unfair to say that there is trouble in the Congress. There is trouble in every single political party in Punjab. There is trouble.
Yeah,
There's big
agreed.
trouble in
But of the
Akali Dal.
5 states,
There,
agreed, sir. But of
there
the
is big
five
trouble in
states going
Akali
to
Dal. There is big
elections,
trouble in Aam Aadmi Party, and there is, of course, now trouble in in the Congress as well. And I'm
right?
amazed why there should be this trouble. These are some issues which could have been sorted out behind closed doors rather than instituting a 3-member panel to carry out a public inquiry. I mean, it's outlandish, I must say. It is like cutting your nose to spite your face.
Cutting your nose to spite your face. Ramesh, I want what are the captain loyalists saying of to this treatment that is being meted out to Amrinder Singh?
Aditi, let's face it, the reality is Amarinder is Congress's best bet in Punjab. He is the tallest leader. He is a very charismatic leader. He has won election after election. Remember 2019 Lok Sabha election. Punjab and Kerala were the only 2 states which bucked the Modi way, right? And Amarinder Singh won, 8 out of 13 seats.
अभी
And
तेरे
all
को फोन
by-elections which have happened in Punjab in last 4 years have been won by the Congress. So, and Vinod sir would bear me out in the history of Punjab. Amarinder Singh is the only Congress chief minister who has 78 MLA out of 170. So he is very firmly in the saddle, right? And these centers, I would say, are a minority group. And so I agree with Vinod sir when he says that they shouldn't have made a public spectacle of this dissenting note within the party and set up a panel, called everybody to Delhi, heard them out for a week. So things are not that serious because Amrinder, as he said, is very firmly entrenched, and there's no serious threat to his leadership. So it boils down to accommodation of people with different ambitions. And but if we all know that Sidhu was crossing the line, and he was attacking his own minister, consistently for last 6 months or so. So the High Command didn't intervene. The High Command didn't tell him to kind of stop doing it. So
In all probability, sir, and to use a cricket analogy, Sidhu confidently was batting on an anti-Amarinder wicket. Clearly, he knew that he had the backing of the powers that be. In fact, a couple of years ago, I remember he had publicly said that my captain is Rahul Gandhi, who's also, Amarinder Singh's captain. So clearly, he has the backing of the High Command to publicly go out and make such statements.
Aditi, that is an open secret that Sidhu has the ear of Priyanka Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi, and he has made a public show of that, proximity also. So, which is, the reason many people believe that, he has been able to get away with what he has said against his own government. An ordinary mortal would have been either suspended from the party or, censured by the disciplinary committee of the party. But nothing of that sort has been done. So, in a way, the Congress, may be hurting its own cause in Punjab by giving kind of too much credence to people who are making noises against Amarinder Singh. And rather than, as Vinod sir said, that rather than sorting these issues in the back room and through spirit of give and take, they have allowed it to become a public spectacle.
Absolutely, because it's not for the first time that a committee has been formed to resolve such infighting within the Congress. We all know that a committee had been set up in Rajasthan last year to resolve the problems between Gehlot and Sachin Pilot, but nothing has happened there. Neither Gehlot has not been summoned to Delhi to answer the grievances leveled by Pilot and his 18 MLAs. But anyway, having said that, does it indicate, clearly the backing of the High Command is there, the Congress High Command is there to sort of a person like Navjot Singh Sidhu, who is going all out and attacking the Congress? Does it indicate, attacking the captain, does it indicate that Amarinder Singh is at the crosshairs of the party High Command? He's almost 80. Are they looking at a succession plan, perhaps, in Punjab Congress, Vinod?
A big issue was made the other day, only yesterday, I think we had a discussion on Jitin Prasada. And, I told you that, it is much ado over nothing, that Jitin Prasada isn't the Brahmin face that is going to launch 1,000 ships, so to speak, You see, if there is going to be really a shock for the Congress, then there are some leaders you can count on your fingertips if they decide to leave the party or set up their own party in the states. And I can name them. And all three of them, in some ways or the other, are the targets. Whether it is Ashok Gehlot, whether it is Amarinder Singh, or whether it is Raman Singh, our Bhupesh Baghel. No,
Okay.
They are the three chief ministers. They are the people with a mass base. They are the true leaders.
Then why isn't
Now,
Congress
if any one of them, even if he makes a statement, it will have it will be a major blow to the Congress's
I agree with
prospects.
you, sir. All the
Wherever
more
they are
reason
contesting.
that Congress should try and
So-
placate a person like Amarinder Singh rather than a
No,
Navjot Singh.
Amarinder Singh doesn't require to be placated. Please, Amarinder Singh, when he came for a leadership summit, if I may help you recall. So he was in a show. In his session, there was also Sukhbir Badal. And
Yeah,
at one
I
point,
remember
he
that.
told At one point, he told Sukhbir Badal that, look, I trust Sukhbir more than I trust his father, because Sukhbir is a man of his words. I can tell you that Amarinder is also a man of his words. Amarinder Singh will not do anything of his own. Even in the last elections, in the 2017 elections, that he would be the chief minister was announced at the 11th hour at the end of the campaign at a public rally in Amritsar. And I was present there. And it was announced by Rahul Gandhi. Until then, there was a lot of disenchantment amongst Amarinder's supporters that why isn't he be projected as the leader of the Congress party as the next chief minister? And that decision by the Congress helped Congress and helped Amarinder Singh get the kind of numbers they eventually got in the state assembly. It is an unprecedented majority, as Ramesh just now told you, with which they won the elections. So when you are headed into an electoral battle, you cannot be enfeebling, emasculating your general just because you like a few foot soldiers. You have to tell the foot soldiers to fall in line and obey the orders of the general. Because the Prime Minister, if it is the Prime Minister, he is not fighting the battle on the fronts. It is the general who is fighting it with the foot soldiers. So in this case, the High Command is at best in a ministerial role. If not, I would like to use the word prime ministerial role. It's a ministerial role. That's the civilian leadership, and it will be respected by everyone. But when you fight the battle, you fight as an army, not with the weapons, but with the weapon of what you have done, with the weapon of driving a contrast between yourself and your adversary. At that time, you should not disturb the order of command. Never do that. Chain of command should never be disturbed. And what has happened in this instance is that too close to the elections, the chain of command seems to have been sought to be disturbed, will not be disturbed, but actually was
Sought to
sought
be
to be
disturbed
disturbed by
by
a set
who,
of
sir?
people.
Which is,
And who got an attentive hearing by the center. I think that hearing should be granted to everyone. Amarinder Singh should also listen to them sincerely and with the intent to accommodate even those who have not been able to work wonders with him. He has to accommodate people. It's a democratic party after all. But at the same time, there is someone who is first amongst the equals. And today in Punjab, Amarinder is first amongst the equals. And Amarinder has a responsibility, therefore, devolved upon him to keep his team intact. And the responsibility of the central leadership of the Congress party is, telling these people, while listening to these dissidents, that telling them, okay, fine, we'll see that how you're accommodated, but thus far and no further. Thus far and no further should be the operative line coming from the High Command when it
let
comes
me
to who the leader and when it comes to who will form the party after the elections, or who will form the government after the elections if they win. But if they continue to fight like this, then they will end up in a similar situation that they ended up in Rajasthan, where in the run-up to the elections there was a tussle between Sachin Pilot and Ashok Gehlot, and where Rajasthan, which looked a low-hanging fruit for the Congress party, became a pie in the sky, and they won with a bare simple majority.
what do
So
you
they should
feel?
not be
What do
sort
you
of falling. Congress should not fall on a sword in Punjab. What it is doing till now is almost amounts to falling on a sword. They shouldn't do it. No,
so
no reasonable party should do it.
not don't like Kalidas, don't cut the tree, that is, don't cut the branch on which you're sitting on a tree, as they say. I asked you, sir, about this, the possible thought in the Congress High Command of a succession plan, and I'm going to put that question to Ramesh. Ramesh, do you feel that Congress is encouraging, the High Command is encouraging Sidhu Yes, you said there is proximity to Rahul and Priyanka of Sidhu, but is it also with a long-term view, or because, as Vinod pointed out, that he is going to turn 80, and he's not getting any younger? So, do you feel that there is a succession plan works in the minds?
See, succession plans cannot be thrust upon, your state set reps. They have to be worked out in consultation and according to the merit seniority. Uh, but Aditi, let me tell you one hard fact. The high command is not strong enough to force its decision on Captain Amarinder Singh. High command is also diminished, I mean, especially after when we are talking a day after Jitin Prasada's death and entry into the BJP. I don't think High Command is in a position to force its decision on Captain Amarinder Singh. They will have to take him on board, kind of make a polite request to him to accommodate Sidhu's ambition in the larger scheme of things, and maybe consult Amarinder on succession plan. As of now, Amarinder has made it abundantly clear that he would like to lead the party in 2022. So he is 79-year-old, and he's fit physically, health-wise, he's absolutely fine. So so they will have to temper Sidhu's ambition to position himself as the face of Congress in 2022. So somewhere we'll have to strike a middle ground, strike balance between Amarinder's seniority, Amarinder's kind of gravitas, his charisma as tallest leader, and of course you have a whole lot of second-rung leadership in Punjab, which can fit the bill as Amarinder's success. So, but these things have to be done in consultation.
Right, and that consultation seems to have come in the form of a three-member panel constituted by the Congress this time. It almost seems like you're putting Amarinder Singh before a trial court ahead, and that was 7 months before elections. Incidentally, of the 5 states going to elections next year, the Punjab seems to be the one state where Congress seems relatively comfortably placed, because, as Vinod was pointing out earlier, the opposition is in a disarray, and now Congress also falling into disarray in this particular state, and that too, the person who is the most popular leader of the Congress, Amarinder Singh, being not really treated right, and by some accounts, and some people say actually being humiliated by the High Command, is probably political harakiri. And At this time, and Vinod is smiling, so I'm going to take the last comments from you, Vinod, on what I just said, and then we can wind up the show. Thank you.
You see, first of all, I must draw your attention to a grave incongruity which has happened in the pictures, moving pictures that I saw. One of the members of the panel is Harish Rawat. He's the
Right.
only face the Congress has in Uttarakhand. Uttarakhand has to go to elections around the same time as Punjab. They rather send that man to his state to set the house in order there,
Yeah.
rather than have him as in charge of Punjab and do an investigation and be part of a panel to make recommendations about the Chief Minister. And if he goes to Uttarakhand and is projected as potential chief ministerial face, for all you know, he may have to face similar dissidents within his own home state, as a potential leader of the party in the run-up to the elections. So I
Right.
think that the Congress leadership, seems to be losing its marbles. I mean, trying to put it as softly as possible. They should know what to front load and what to back load. They should know how to go about. If they have made a public demonstration of this three-member panel inquiry to show that they still count as leaders at the center, then it's a sorry situation. It's a very sad situation. If that is so. Because I personally feel that it was a case of overreaction. They should have simply called Amarinder Singh, Navjot Singh Sidhu one by one and maybe later together to Delhi, or they should have sent a senior leader to Punjab to negotiate with them. They have senior leaders like Ambika Soni, who is a member of parliament from Rajya Sabha from Punjab, and she has represented Punjab in Lok Sabha as well. So I do not know what was the need for this panel, and if Mr. Navjot Sidhu is arm twisting the Congress leadership, then I think that by submitting to him and not at the expense of the Chief Minister's prestige, they have, I think, played a bigger gamble, which they may not win. So I think that this report, as I see from the text of it, is a soft report. It leaves a lot of room for the Chief Minister to do things as per his understanding, while taking into consideration the sensitivities of people like Navjot Singh Sidhu and a couple of others pathological anti-Amarinder Singh people. I don't want to name them. Ramesh knows them. And they count for nothing in Punjab, to be honest, Aditi. Most of them count for nothing in Punjab. If there is a leader in Punjab today who can mobilize people in support of the Congress, make them rally around the party, it is Amarinder Singh. And
Absolutely.
Navjot Singh Sidhu, had he continued to serve under Amarinder Singh as his understudy, he would have by now would have been groomed to be his rightful successor once he decides to hang his gloves.
But we know that Sidhu even tried. After he left the BJP, he tried to join AAP, right? And wanted to become the chief ministerial face of AAP there in Punjab. When that didn't happen, he went to the Congress, and now Amarinder Singh is already there. So now,
in BJP, he was not being allowed to come up by the BJP under pressure of the Badals. That's a fact. He was a favorite of Arun Jaitley. Arun Jaitley, unfortunately, is not there anymore. And that is why BJP is in a disarray in Punjab, and their relationship with Akali Dal, they have frayed beyond redemption, largely on account of the BJP's refusal to accommodate the protesting farmers even one bit. Now, that is a major issue where Amarinder Singh has taken a position consistent with that of the farmers. And there have been some murmurs of protest against him also in the farmers community, against Amarinder also. But there hasn't been a major revolt against him by the farmers as it is against the BJP, and to some extent and against the Akali Dal, because up to an extent they were part of those decisions that were taken. But thereafter they have taken a position realizing the ground realities, and they will make a fight of it. You see, Akali Dal will make a fight of it, even in its truncated form. They will make a fight of it.
And in that situation,
with the Congress in Punjab, even without the BJP. But because there is going to be a strong opposition, Akalis don't give up easily. Please understand that. Though many of the senior people have left Sukhbir and formed another party, but the Taksali group and some other groups and all that. But Akalis don't give up easily. They are a party of agitation. And that is why they have to be taken seriously. So if the High Command thinks that the Punjab election is already in their pocket, they are sadly mistaken. They'll have to fight every inch in Punjab.
And you never know. I want to go to
never
Ramesh,
know what position these protesting unions take at the 11th hour. They may say something. They may come up with a statement, for all you know. And who will handle that? Is Navjot in a position to handle it? No. It is only Amarinder who can handle it.
Absolutely. And Amarinder Singh also was stuck in a bad place with Rahul Gandhi openly going out and supporting the farmers, and the Congress and other opposition parties supporting the farmers. Amarinder, for his pragmatic politics in the state, he was trying to stop the agitation and say, okay, let it end. But he did do a fine balancing act. And I want to come to you, Ramesh, with asking you one question, which is on the ground. What is the situation right now, 6 months, 7 months before the elections? What is the mood of the state? You're on the ground. You've been meeting people, talking to people. What's the mood on the ground? Is it as what Vinod is painting it out to be?
Uh, well, Aditi, we are living in a very extraordinary times when political mobilization is not possible. And generally, political mobilization becomes barometer of, the popular mood. But there are straws in the wind that, game for 22-22 assembly election is still wide open. It could be anybody's game. Amarinder is not out of reckoning. So is the Congress. And Akali, as Vinod sir rightly said, they are very gritty fight. And, Haridal is part of Punjab DNA. And Subir, we all know, is a street fighter. So, so Congress faces a very stiff challenge from Akali Dal. And let's not even write off Aam Aadmi Party, though they are not what they were in 2014 or 17. They have consistently lost their kind of base in Punjab. So eventually it will boil down to a direct fight between Akali Dal and Congress, with Aam Aadmi Party also having stakes at least in some of. That's my assessment as of.
All right, thank you. We lost the last part of your thing. I think there's some problem with your mic. The voice is coming and going. We'll have it checked out later before our next broadcast together. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you, viewers, for watching this broadcast. Yes, crucial 5 states coming up. Elections in 5 states coming up in the next 5 to 6 months. 6 to 7 months. And of which, as I said before, Congress was the most comfortably placed in Punjab. Humiliating Amarinder Singh at a time like this, and this report now saying that Sidhu must be accommodated suitably by Amarinder Singh. We don't know how that's going to play out in the days to come. We still have to get all the details of the report also. So once we have the whole report, we will of course come back to you with more details and more analysis and updates with our senior editors here from Hindustan Times. Thank you so much for your time, sirs. Thank you, viewers, for watching. Thank you.
Thank you, Diti.
Thank you. Bye.